Here's a last look at that exhaust. Not a bad exhaust for the price. You get the great piping. Canister's a little off. If you're going to use your own kind of canister, it'd be great to get the piping for only the like $100 shipped. But I'm going to go ahead and start working on that on my next day off and get that swapped out. What's up, guys? Today we're going to work on getting the mini muffler reinstalled back onto the Civic. We're going to cut up the axle back of the eBay exhaust, and we're going to weld on some of the piping plus the mini muffler. Now, the way I had this muffler before, I used the front portion of the axle back and made it straight out of the rear bumper, but I had a cut rear bumper. That'll no longer work because the way it came straight out, it's going to come right across here and hit the lower piece of the bumper. Up in here you can see the area. This is where I had the bumper coming out, and I even trimmed a little bit of the metal there. Now my new plan, luckily I still have the front portion of the catback. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to hack this piece up. So if you're trying to attempt to do what I did, you're going to need another piece that has a bend like this. My plan is to cut, see where it's straight, right up in here. I'm going to cut it where it's straight. I'm also going to cut this piece off, and we're going to use this little bend. It'll bring it down far enough, and then straight out the back, and we'll weld the mini muffler to that portion. So instead of having to use this and worry about this bend, I think that piece will bring it down just low enough, and then right out the back I'll have my little muffler hanging right here instead. And after I finish using up this piece of the metal, I think I'm going to cut out this resonator, and if you look, I still have the stock cat. It's just gutted. So obviously it's smaller in the front and in the rear. So that piece will be a 2.5-inch piping, and I'll be able to use it as a resonator to possibly quiet the exhaust even more. I would love for just the sound of more engine and then some exhaust, just like a really nice growl. So we're probably going to attempt that after we have the mini muffler portion completed. I went ahead and grinded off both of the exhaust hangers first. I need that portion clean because I'm probably going to cut it maybe right about here. Maybe an inch and a half away from each bend. Just give myself enough room. Now you need to figure out where you want your exhaust to sit. I have a reverse just so I can get an idea. I want to sit maybe like right about there. So that's why I marked it. That's where the end of the muffler is going to be. I want it to be flat. I don't want it angled down or angled up. And probably going to want to use this portion. So it looks like I might need to cut this right around here, and maybe like right here in the center, which is cool because the exhaust triangle will still be on there. Make it a lot easier to install. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the axle back now so I can start cutting and getting some measurements. After a few more cuts, here's my progress. So you can see where the first part of the axle back. This piece, I don't know how far I want it to go in yet because I need to put it up on the car. And then I cut the muffler off, and this piece is actually, it's always been bigger, so that'll be a little easier to weld together. And I'm going to test fit it right now, see how it all matches up. And I got the axle back put on. Here's that piece that I made. It'll fit somewhere right around there. And the muffler, let me just slide it in more, it's hanging down a little too low. So we're going to play around with that right now and find a spot where we're happy with. Now to mate these two pieces together, I'm not just going to weld it like that. I have this tailpipe expander, which you put inside and you just crank it with a socket. We want to try opening this up a little bit so we can just slide this piece into there, and that way when it sits in there we can just weld it and have a nice clean seal. Here's a little mock-up before welding, kind of the angle I'm shooting for, with a little bit of space between the bumper, just to account for heat issues. I don't want it melting my bumper. And then from the rear, it looks angled from this side, but when you're behind it, looks straight with the car. And from the side, I want it to be flush with the bumper in terms of the angle. So it looks like I have it pretty spot on. There's my finished axle back. It is by far not the prettiest, especially since I'm using that Harbor Freight. It's a flux core welder, but it gets the job done, and you won't even notice those when I have it on the car. It's gonna be tucked behind the bumper. I thought about painting the back portion black, but a lot of times it tends to chip off, and it's just more work than it's worth. So I'm gonna throw it on the car now. Let's see how it looks, and let's start it up. Here it is, I got it bolted back on. It sits perfect. At least perfect to where I wanted it. And I can still use the original exhaust hanger. Let's get the car lowered and let's start it up.
Baby, I've been slipping back, heading south, car sick on a Tuesday, missing cash, blacking out, heartless in a few